Oh, you like that, don't you? How about I take you to my boudoir and give you a little rusty venture?
What is up, guys? Welcome back to a new Venture Bros video. My name is Gullapy, and if you don't know, Venture Bros is one of my favorite TV shows. And as excited as I am for the upcoming movie, I wanted to make this type of video to break down characters, and who else to talk about than the man himself. So, who is Rusty Ventrell? So Rusty, or his full name is Dr. Thaddeus Ventrell, but don't let the doctor fool you. He's as much of a doctor just like I'm getting to a silver play button. When we first meet Rusty in the pilot episode, he's getting ready to head to Japan for a convention and for being rewarded for one of his inventions. You can already get the type of guy Rusty is by the pilot episode, but that doesn't correlate until later on in the first season. Rusty is the son of Jonas Ventrell and the brother of Jonas Jr. and the Monarch, and the father of Dean and Hank Ventrell and Dermot, but that's a little spoiler for later on in the season. So if you didn't know this, but Venture Bros is a parody of the classic show Johnny Quest. Not only having references to the show, they even have Johnny himself as a strung out version of himself. Rusty was created to be a straight man for the whole show, and we get to see how a life of neglect and dangerous adventures can do to a person. That's why when something crazy is happening, Rusty gives off the I don't care vibe. And that's because Rusty has seen anything and everything before he became an adult. So if he can avoid it, he will. But he didn't start off like that. You see, in the first season, Rusty had a bad addiction to weight loss pills, and you can see that he more involved himself into situations. But it wasn't until they went into space that Rusty dropped the pills, and we start to see him change, have his more careless attitude and less about stuff. If you want to see a greater example of this, look at season 7, The Haunted Problem. This is where Jonah's dead body is trying to get the attention of everyone by doing some conjuring bullshit that even has Brock scared as shit. And what does Rusty do? He says it's nothing. He tries to play off that as just bad technology. But before I even get further with this is Brock Sampson, Rusty's bodyguard. Brock pretty much handles 98% of the adventure. They go in, and you can say that Brock's one of Rusty's closest friends. I can stand by that. It's not really shown in the first few seasons, but after season 5, it shows that how close these two really are. But speaking of close friends, there's Sergeant Hatred, Billy, Pete White, and Dr. Morpheus, who's a Doctor Strange parody if you didn't know. Let's talk about Rusty's early life. The glimpses we get to see is that Rusty never really had a normal life, with him going around the world with his dad or being kidnapped for most of it. But don't worry, he did get saved for all of them, even if it takes some time. One of the best examples has to be the Spanakopia episode, is where we see Rusty going to his favorite place to celebrate Spanakopia, a made-up holiday made by the people of the island who kidnapped Rusty when he was a child. And when Jonas and the others didn't show up, they felt bad and lied to Rusty about a holiday. And what's funny about this is that Rusty still believes it. He even said he wants to retire there. Oh yeah, there's probably 50% of Brock's offspring in that island. And during the days of being a boy adventurer, he was always surrounded by people who took the super team to the extreme, that being the original Team Ventrell. And even Rusty has his own Team Ventrell. So other than having a crappy childhood, it's been revealed that Rusty is more like his son and that of him being a clone. You see, in the beginning seasons, we find out that Rusty will make clones of Dean and Hank because the originals was not the safest. They were accident prone. But honestly, are we really surprised that Rusty is a clone? Hell, look who his dad is and the people he grew up with. There was a scene where Rusty was talking to Dean, and he talks about the time when Action Man will wake him up in the middle of the night with a gun pointing at his face and shooting a blank. And we all know the type of guy Action Man is. So who can say that one night them blinks wasn't blank? But we don't know how many times Rusty's been cloned. So let's move on. After all the boy adventuring, Rusty was able to go to State University by co-writing his dad. And there is where we meet Pete White and Baron Underbite, who became one of his main archers at the beginning of the season, and also was roommates with Brock. One thing I love about the show is how everything is connected to characters that you wouldn't even think about. Like, you could have a no-name character or location from season 1 and it will later be in season 7. It could also be a huge plot to the story. After some time, Rusty gets blamed and kicked out of the university for an explosion that happened and blew off Baron Underbite's jaw. But it was the Monarch who actually set up the explosive. How he did that? He placed the bomb in the lab where Baron and Rusty was working on a project. But don't worry, Rusty goes south of the border to get his degree in super science. For the beginning of his super science life, his first arch was the Monarch, and in the universe of the Venture Bros, they take the hero and villain trope to heart, even having the 2 major organizations that register you to become a villain and rank you. I'll make a video about more of the OSI and the Guild of Calamity's Intent, but if you want to hear more about that, I'll make a video talking about the OSI and the Guild, but I'll talk more about Rusty after this. So before the show was canceled, season 7 is where we got some big plots happening to Rusty, and that's being a half-brother of the Monarch. And this was a popular theory since season 4, but since the show got canceled, we really don't know what the relationship was going to be. The only sign I could tell that the relationship was going to be healthy is going to be the episode where the Monarch and 21 goes to the villain's hideout and steals back the weather machine for the guild. That's where we get to see a time paradox, Rusty and Billy come out from a clock. And Rusty calls out the Monarch by his first name, which is Malcolm. And if you don't know about the show, no one calls him Malcolm except for family. Hell, not even his wife calls him Malcolm all the time. So with this thing, I can only tell that this was Rusty from the future, where him and the Monarch got really close and bonded. Hell, if we would have had a season 8, we could have had a whole episode of them two doing an adventure. No, a venture. Get it? Because ventral, they're both Venture Bros. I'll stop. So Rusty's a fan favorite of mine, but he's not in the top 10. I like the way how he's written and how he never believed or wanted to give light to the wackiness of the show. You know, Rusty's character was a scientist that didn't care for any of the other stuff. You know, sounds familiar. One thing I want to talk about is his relationship with his sons, Hank and Dean. It's pretty bad. Other than being neglectful towards them, he seems not to care because of the clones. But when the clone machine was taken away by the OSI, he only cared because he couldn't make a backup. And I know from the surface it seems like he loves Dean more than Hank, but that's not true. He sees himself a lot in Hank, and he hates how he's doing what his dad did to him, and wants Hank and Dean to live that life that he grew up on. Sure, he gives Dean more praise, but that's only because he sees Dean's intelligence. I find it interesting how Hank and Dean handled knowing that they were clones, with Dean going through an identity crisis and becoming an emo for a little while. But for Hank, he takes it well and was hype about it. Now let's talk about his other son, Dermot. Dermot is Rusty's oldest son. He made his first appearance in season 3, episode 5, when the Ventral crew had a summer camp and Dermot goes to meet his dad. But at first he thought Brock was his dad. And at first you could say that they look alike with the long blonde hair, but that was a lie told by his mom, because the truth is that Rusty got with his mom when she was underage and the president of his fan club. So there's that. Quickly Dermot and Hank became best friends and dropping the best rock song in this generation. Later on, Dermot finds out that he's Rusty's son and got him to get him in the OSI. I don't know how, but Rusty did it. What can I say about Rusty is that he's a byproduct of his environment. Yes, he was dealt a bad hand and he knows that. He pretty much knows that there's nothing he can do to escape it. And seeing how similar other adult cartoon characters share this aspect with Rusty, it shows that he paved the way for that character type. I'm not saying that he was the first, but he walked so that he could run. One of my favorite Rusty episodes has to be the one with Dean in New York. I just find it funny that how Rusty is so far up his own ass writing a Rusty musical. It's kind of catchy. Also in the end, where Rusty jumps into another universe where that Rusty is a famous genius and our Rusty tries to take him out by killing him with a big rock. That's pretty much sums up how Rusty is as a character. Oh yeah, and that all happened off screen. Another few episodes I like would be the first appearance of Myra, Rusty's first bodyguard. So we get to see a little bit more how Rusty, is in relationships with his bodyguards, especially with women. And the old episode, that's where we actually see Rusty get into the whole boy adventure phase again with Billy. I find Billy and Rusty episodes pretty interesting to watch. But did you watch the Venture Bros and did I miss something? Let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to get some Gullapy to look fresh as fuck. And if you guys want to see me talk about another Venture Bros character such as Brock, Dean, or even obscure characters from the Venture Bros series like this guy, don't forget to leave a like, comment. Until the next one, peace.